Mr. Henderson, can you state your full name for the record?
Arthur Henderson, Henderson.
And you acknowledge you entered Miss Evans' apartment without her explicit permission
It was a safety check. I heard a strange noise, thought something was wrong. Her pipes, maybe. I had to check.
A safety check is typically prearranged, sir. Did you attempt to contact her?
I tried calling. She didn't answer. What was I supposed to do?
The silence in apartment 3B was shattered, not by a crash, but by the insidious creak of a door frame splintering, followed by the soft, almost apologetic click of a lock giving way. It was 10:47 a.m. on a Thursday, a time when most people are at work, their homes left vulnerable. What followed was a breach of sanctuary, an invasion of privacy, and a stark reminder that some believe the rules simply don't apply to them. But this time, the person whose sanctuary was violated was Dr. Anya Sharma, a woman whose life had been dedicated to upholding the very principles of respect and justice that were about to be trampled underfoot. This story isn't just about a broken door or a landlord overstepping his bounds. It's about a system that too often fails to protect the vulnerable and sometimes actively enables those who abuse their power. It's about Officer David Miller, whose internal affairs file contained 14 complaints, a number that speaks volumes about a pattern of disregard for protocol and civil liberties, yet who still wore a badge and carried a gun. It's about how Dr. Sharma, a celebrated educator, a pillar of her community, found her home invaded, her rights dismissed, and her dignity challenged not just by a rogue landlord, but by the very authority meant to protect her. Before we delve deeper into this unfolding narrative, where are you watching from? Take a moment to share your location in the comments below. Your engagement fuels our ability to bring these critical stories to light. The air hung heavy and humid over Atlanta, Georgia, on that late October morning. A persistent drizzle had given way to a muggy warmth, clinging to the brick facades of the historic West End neighborhood. The sky was a bruised purple-gray, threatening more rain, reflecting the somber mood that would soon descend upon the quiet residential street. Apartment 3B, a charming unit in a 3-story Victorian conversion, usually exuded a sense of calm, a haven from the city's ceaseless rhythm. But on October 26, 2023, that calm was violently disrupted. Dr. Anya Sharma had built her life with intention and dedication. Born and raised in the heart of Atlanta, she was a true product of the city's rich academic tapestry. She earned her bachelor's degree in English literature from Spelman College, graduating summa cum laude, before pursuing her master's and Ph.D. in education from Emory University. Her dissertation, a groundbreaking study on culturally responsive pedagogy in urban environments, garnered national attention. For the past 15 years, Dr. Sharma had been an indispensable force at Northwood High School, first as an English teacher, then as a dean of students, and most recently as the assistant principal. Her accolades were numerous. Teacher of the Year, recipient of the Presidential Award for Excellence in Teaching, and a regular speaker at national education conferences. She was known for her unwavering commitment to her students, her calm demeanor under pressure, and her fierce advocacy for equity and inclusion. Dr. Sharma had earned her position, her reputation, and her right to peace and security. Officer David Miller, however, operated from a different playbook. His tenure with the Atlanta Police Department, stretching just over 7 years, was marked by a troubling series of incidents. Internal affairs records, later unsealed during discovery, painted a stark picture of patrolmen frequently accused of misconduct. In 2019, Miller faced a complaint of excessive force after a traffic stop escalated into a physical altercation with a nonviolent suspect, resulting in a fractured wrist for the civilian. Though he received a verbal reprimand, no formal disciplinary action was taken. A year later, in 2020, he was cited for racial profiling following a stop-and-frisk incident involving 2 young black men walking home from a community center. The complaint was dismissed due to insufficient evidence. In early 2022, Miller was involved in a property damage incident during a warrant execution where he allegedly used unnecessary force to breach a door, causing damage far beyond what was required, claiming officer safety concerns despite the property owner being cooperative. Each time, the complaints mounted, building a dossier that clearly indicated a pattern of misjudgment, overreach, and a persistent disregard for the rights of citizens he swore to protect. The warning signs were not merely visible. They were glaring. The call came into dispatch at 10:55 a.m. Report of suspicious activity. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio. Caller states concern for tenant safety, possible break-in. Address: 1420 Magnolia Lane, apartment 3B. Landlord on scene. The description, vague and almost benign, concealed the true nature of the situation. It was Mr. Robert Harrison, Dr. Sharma's landlord, who had placed the call after he had already forced his way into her apartment. His claim of a safety check was a thin veil over an act of criminal trespass, a violation of the most fundamental tenant rights. Dr. Sharma, having just finished a virtual meeting with a parent, was in her living room preparing lesson plans for the following day. Her apartment, usually a quiet sanctuary filled with the soft hum of classical music, now echoed with muffled sound from the front door. A faint splintering noise, then a metallic click. Her brow furrowed. She rose, moving cautiously toward the entrance, her heart quickening. As she approached, she saw the door, a solid oak panel, slightly ajar, the frame around the lock clearly damaged. Her stomach dropped. Before she could process the invasion, a man stepped out from her kitchen, holding a flashlight, looking startled to see her. It was Mr. Harrison, her landlord. "Dr. Sharma, what are you doing here?" he exclaimed, a bizarre accusation given it was her home. "Mr. Harrison, what are you doing in my apartment?" Dr. Sharma demanded, her voice tight with controlled fury. "And what have you done to my door?" I was doing a safety check," he stammered, his eyes darting. "I heard a noise, thought something was wrong. You weren't answering your phone. You broke into my apartment, Mr. Harrison. You have no right to be here." Just then, the distinct sound of a police siren wailed in the distance, growing rapidly louder. Officer Miller arrived on the scene less than 5 minutes later, pulling his patrol car to the curb. He entered the building, radio in hand, and ascended the stairs. He found Mr. Harrison standing awkwardly in the doorway of apartment 3B. Dr. Sharma standing several feet back, her arms crossed, visibly shaken. The damaged door frame was immediately apparent. "What's going on here?" Officer Miller asked, his gaze sweeping over the scene, resting briefly on Dr. Sharma before settling on Mr. Harrison. "Officer, this woman is my tenant," Mr. Harrison began, gesturing vaguely at Dr. Sharma. "I was conducting a safety inspection. I heard strange noises, thought there might be a gas leak or something. She wasn't responding to my calls." "A safety inspection?" Dr. Sharma interjected, stepping forward. "You broke down my door, Mr. Harrison. I never authorized entry, and you certainly didn't give me 24 hours' notice, as required by my lease and state law." She held up her phone, displaying a digital copy of her lease agreement. "This is my home. I pay rent here. This is criminal trespass." "Officer." Miller barely glanced at the screen. "Ma'am, the landlord claims he had a legitimate concern. Property owners have rights too, you know." His tone was dismissive, his posture indicating he had already made up his mind. Anyone can fake a lease on a phone. "Do you have physical proof you live here?" Dr. Sharma, incredulous, retrieved her wallet. "Yes, officer. My driver's license, which matches the address on my lease, and a utility bill that arrived yesterday." She presented them. Miller took the documents, gave them a cursory glance, and handed them back. "Look, folks, this sounds like a civil matter. Mr. Harrison said he was worried. We get these calls all the time." He turned to Mr. Harrison. "Sir, in the future, you need to follow proper procedure. But for now, if there's no immediate threat, I think we can all just calm down. Should officers verify credentials thoroughly and impartially, or should they prioritize one party's claims over another's, especially when physical evidence of crime is present? No immediate threat?" Dr. Sharma's voice rose, a tremor of indignation now evident. "My door is broken. This man entered my private residence without permission. That is a felony. Officer Miller, he committed a crime, and you are standing here suggesting I calm down?" Witnesses, drawn by the commotion and the sight of the patrol car, began to gather in the hallway. Neighbors from apartment 3A and 3C peered out, their faces a mix of concern and curiosity. One neighbor, Ms. Albright, a retired schoolteacher herself, spoke up. "Officer, I saw Mr. Harrison struggle with that door earlier. It sounded like he was trying to kick it in." Officer Miller turned towards Ms. Albright, his expression hardening. "Ma'am, I'm handling this. Please step back." He then looked back at Dr. Sharma. "Listen, Dr. Sharma, Mr. Harrison made a judgment call. Maybe it wasn't by the book, but his intent was to ensure safety. We don't need to make a mountain out of a molehill here. His intent was to invade my privacy." Dr. Sharma countered, her composure finally cracking. "His intent was to break the law, and your intent, officer, seems to be to let him get away with it." The standoff escalated. Officer Miller, visibly annoyed, began to raise his voice. "You need to cooperate, ma'am. Otherwise, I can cite you for obstruction." The implicit threat hung in the air, a chilling reminder of the power dynamics at play. It was at this critical juncture, as the situation teetered on the brink of further injustice, that the distinct sound of a second police radio chirped. Closer now, followed by heavy footsteps ascending the stairs. Sergeant Lena Torres, a seasoned supervisor known for her strict adherence to protocol and her no-nonsense approach, rounded the corner. Her eyes immediately took in the damaged door, the agitated Dr. Sharma, the defensive Mr. Harrison, and the clearly flustered Officer Miller. Sergeant Torres didn't waste a second, her gaze fixed on the splintered door frame. "Officer Miller, what is the situation here?" Her voice was calm, but carried an undeniable authority that instantly cut through the tension. She took in the scene, the shattered door frame, the visibly distressed tenant, the shifty landlord, and the patrol officer clearly out of his depth, or worse, out of line. She didn't wait for Miller's fumbling explanation. Her eyes met Dr. Sharma's. "Ma'am, are you the tenant of this apartment?" Dr. Sharma nodded, still trembling slightly. Sergeant Torres then turned to Mr. Harrison. "Sir, did you force entry into this apartment?" Mr. Harrison began to stammer. I was concerned for safety." Sergeant Torres cut him off with a firm hand gesture. "Did you force entry, yes or no?" Mr. Harrison, cornered, mumbled, "Yes, but—" Sergeant Torres then turned to Officer Miller, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous register. "Officer, secure the scene. Mr. Harrison, you are to immediately exit this apartment and remain in the hallway. Dr. Sharma, please step inside your apartment. I need you to gather any evidence of forced entry and any documentation related to your tenancy." Her instructions were precise, leaving no room for argument. She then looked directly at Officer Miller. "And you, Miller, badge and weapon. Now." The implications were immediate and severe. The resolution was swift, at least for Mr. Harrison. Under Sergeant Torres's direct supervision, Mr. Harrison was immediately detained for criminal trespass and felony property damage. The initial incident report filed by Officer Miller was scrapped. Sergeant Torres personally oversaw the collection of evidence, photographing the damaged door, taking statements from Dr. Sharma and the neighbors who witnessed Mr. Harrison's forced entry. Mr. Harrison was transported to the precinct, booked, and released on bail hours later, but the wheels of justice, initially stalled by Officer Miller, were now turning. Dr. Sharma's door was secured with a temporary board, and arrangements were made for emergency repairs. But the immediate legal action against Mr. Harrison was only the beginning. The incident, captured partially by a neighbor's phone and entirely by Dr. Sharma's quick-thinking decision to hit record on her own device as Officer Miller began to dismiss her claims, quickly went viral. The footage, showing Miller's dismissive attitude, his refusal to acknowledge clear evidence of crime, and his thinly veiled threat against Dr. Sharma, ignited a firestorm across social media. Within 24 hours, the hashtags #JusticeForDrSharma and the hashtag Officer Miller Exposed trended nationally. The video garnered over 15 million views on TikTok, 8 million on Twitter, and countless shares across Facebook and Instagram. News outlets picked up the story, highlighting the blatant disregard for tenant rights and the shocking indifference of a uniformed officer. Should officers who demonstrate clear bias, dismiss criminal acts, and threaten victims face automatic termination without the possibility of reemployment in law enforcement? The institutional responses were immediate and multifaceted. The Atlanta Police Department issued a statement acknowledging the serious nature of the allegations and announced an internal investigation into Officer Miller's conduct. Dr. Sharma, represented by the Southern Civil Rights Alliance, filed a comprehensive lawsuit against Mr. Harrison for criminal trespass, property damage, invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Crucially, the lawsuit also named the City of Atlanta and the Atlanta Police Department, alleging negligence in the supervision and training of Officer Miller and a pattern of allowing officers with documented histories of misconduct to remain on the force. The claims detailed how Miller's actions, driven by implicit bias, escalated a clear criminal matter into a potential civil rights violation, denying Dr. Sharma her constitutional right to security in her home and equal protection under the law. The pressure mounted. After weeks of intense public scrutiny and a meticulous internal affairs investigation led by Sergeant Torres, the APD announced its findings. Officer David Miller was officially terminated from the force. His termination letter, a document later released to the public, was unambiguous. Officer Miller's conduct on October 26, 2023, demonstrated a profound failure to uphold the department's standards of impartiality, professionalism, and adherence to the law. His dismissal of a clear criminal act, his biased treatment of a victim, and his threatening demeanor constitute gross misconduct and a breach of public trust. Furthermore, the Georgia Peace Officer Standards and Training Council post initiated decertification proceedings, ensuring Miller would never again serve as a law enforcement officer in the state. The lawsuit, meanwhile, moved rapidly towards mediation. Faced with overwhelming video evidence, witness testimony, and the APD's own findings, Mr. Harrison's legal team quickly advised settlement. The City of Atlanta, eager to mitigate further public relations damage and avoid a protracted, costly trial, also pushed for resolution. In a landmark agreement, Dr. Sharma received a settlement of $2.8 million. This figure, encompassing damages for property, emotional distress, and punitive damages, was hailed as one of the largest settlements in Georgia history for a tenant rights and police misconduct case, sending a clear message about accountability. In the wake of the settlement and the officer's termination, Dr. Sharma stood before a throng of reporters, her voice steady, her gaze unwavering. "This isn't just about me," she began, her words resonating with quiet power. "If this can happen to me, a black woman with multiple degrees, a respected educator, a homeowner by all accounts, then it can happen to anyone. It can happen to the single mother, the elderly, the immigrant, the marginalized. My credentials, my accomplishments, my standing in the community, none of that protected me from a landlord who felt entitled to violate my home, nor from an officer who felt entitled to dismiss my rights." Her testimony was a powerful indictment of systemic failures. This incident laid bare a dangerous truth, that bias, whether conscious or unconscious, can override evidence, override law, and override basic human decency. We must demand more from those who hold power over our lives, whether they hold a lease or a badge. Should an incident like this, which exposes clear bias and a pattern of misconduct, automatically trigger a federal investigation into the police department's training, accountability, and hiring practices? The Atlanta Police Department, reeling from the public outcry and the significant financial settlement, was forced to confront its own deficiencies. Department findings, released in a detailed 60-page report, acknowledged systemic failures in several critical areas. The report cited inadequate implicit bias training, insufficient oversight of officers with repeat complaints, and a culture that sometimes prioritized expediency over due process. It highlighted a lack of clear protocols for responding to landlord-tenant disputes, allowing individual officer discretion to become a breeding ground for bias. In response, the APD announced a sweeping series of reforms. These included mandatory, recurring implicit bias training for all officers, a revised complaint review process with an independent civilian oversight committee, and a 3-strikes policy for officers with sustained misconduct complaints, leading to automatic review for termination. Additionally, new guidelines were issued regarding landlord-tenant interactions, explicitly mandating verification of all parties' claims and strict adherence to tenant rights laws. This story of Dr. Anya Sharma, Officer David Miller, and Mr. Robert Harrison is a stark illustration of how easily the scales of justice can be tipped when bias overrides evidence, when power goes unchecked, and when accountability is an afterthought. The consequences were severe. A home invaded, a community's trust eroded, a city's reputation tarnished, and a significant financial cost borne by taxpayers. But the consequences for Dr. Sharma were immeasurable. The loss of her sense of safety, the violation of her sanctuary, and the emotional toll of fighting for what should have been her undeniable right. What changes now? Will these reforms truly take root, or will they simply be another layer of bureaucracy over a flawed foundation? We must challenge our institutions to do better, to demand that those entrusted with public safety uphold their oath to all citizens, not just those they deem worthy. We need policies that mandate independent review of all use of force incidents and citizen complaints, and a national database of decertified officers to prevent them from simply moving to another jurisdiction. We're not stopping here. This conversation is far from over. Your voice matters. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What specific policy changes do you believe are most critical to prevent similar incidents of police misconduct and bias from happening again? What can communities do to hold their law enforcement agencies truly accountable? Your insights are vital. It's about all of us demanding a system that truly serves and protects every single individual without exception.